A family in South Carolina owned 80 acres. Nobody in that family ever sold a single acre. Today, not one of them owns any of it. There was no eviction, no bank, no fire. It was taken by a filing cabinet. And the same filing cabinet is open right now, with your name in it. I want to tell you what happened to that land. Then I want to tell you about a form her great-granddaughter filled in at 23. Because they are the same story. And only one of them is still fixable. Let me tell you about a woman. We'll call her Yvonne. Yvonne is 51. She grew up hearing one sentence in her family the way other families say grace. We used to have land. 80 acres outside Orangeburg, South Carolina, bought in 1919 by a man who had been born to people who were owned. He paid for it in cash, over 11 years, because no bank in that county would lend to a man like him. He died in 1954 without a will. Not because he didn't care, because there were almost no black lawyers practicing in South Carolina in 1954, and the white ones in his town did not take his kind of business. So the land passed the only way it could, to everybody at once. 9 children. Then 31 grandchildren. Then a number nobody in the family could say out loud because nobody had ever counted. Yvonne remembers being 7 years old and being told the field with the pecan trees was partly hers. She remembers not understanding what partly meant. Yvonne left at 19 and got an office job at a hospital system in Charlotte at 23. On her first morning, HR gave her a folder. Inside was a form asking who should receive her retirement account if she died. She was 23. She had $400 in the account, no husband, no children. So she wrote the only name that made sense, the name of the woman who raised her. Her mother. She signed it, handed it back, and got on with her life. That was 1998. Understand what she was doing in that moment. She was providing. There is a line in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8 that says, anyone who does not provide for their own household has denied the faith. Yvonne was 23 years old, and she was already trying to obey it. She did the right thing. She just did it once. Her mother died in 2011. Yvonne's retirement account today holds a little over $160,000. The form in that filing cabinet still says her mother's name. And across the American South, land held the way her great-grandfather's was held. No will, everybody at once, comes to 3.5 million acres, worth more than $28 billion. Now, you might be thinking she has a will. She does. She made one in 2016. It leaves everything to her 2 children. It will not matter. And the reason it will not matter has been to the Supreme Court twice. Between 1998 and now, Yvonne married and divorced. She had 2 children. She changed departments 4 times and employers once. And each time the balance moved with her, and nobody ever asked about the form, because the form moved too. She updated her address 7 times, her emergency contact 3 times, her tax withholding whenever the children's circumstances shifted. Nobody sends you a letter about a beneficiary form. There is no renewal date. It does not expire. It sits in a system, perfectly valid, doing precisely what it was told to do in 1998 by a 23-year-old who no longer exists. And while that was happening 400 miles south, the 80 acres was doing its own quiet work. A developer approached one cousin in Atlanta, one out of a family nobody could count, and bought his fractional share. Then he went to court and asked for a partition sale, which was his right as a part owner. The land sold at auction for a fraction of what it was worth. The proceeds were divided by fraction. Yvonne's check came to $1,100. Nobody in her family ever sold that land. It was sold out from under all of them. By one signature, none of them saw. What made Yvonne finally look was a woman at work. A colleague, 54, 2 grown sons, a will, a house, everything in order. She died on a Tuesday of something nobody saw coming. At the funeral, Yvonne overheard the sons talking, not about grief, about the retirement account. It had gone to their father's first wife, a woman he divorced in 1994 and had not spoken to since 2001. The will said the sons. The divorce decree said the sons. The form said her. The form won. Yvonne drove home that evening and sat in the car on her own drive without going in. She thought about a filing cabinet in Charlotte with her dead mother's name in it, and 80 acres in Orangeburg that nobody sold. If you're the first person in your family building any of this, you already know how few people there are to ask. Be sure to subscribe and let this be one of them. There is a line in Proverbs I keep coming back to. Chapter 24, verses 3 and 4, English Standard Version. By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Read the order of that. Wisdom builds it, understanding makes it stand, and knowledge is what fills the rooms. Knowledge is not the decoration in that verse. It is load-bearing. Yvonne's great-grandfather had the wisdom. He bought the land. He had the understanding. He held it for 35 years. Nobody ever gave him the knowledge. So the rooms emptied. Here is what Yvonne found when she started reading. A retirement account does not pass through your will. It passes by contract to whoever is named on the plan's own form. Your will governs what is left over after everything with a name attached has already gone. That is not a loophole. It has been tested at the highest level twice. In 2001, a man named David Egelhoff divorced and died 2 months later without changing his form. Washington state had a law saying divorce automatically cancels a spouse as beneficiary. The Supreme Court struck that law down. Federal retirement law overrode it. His ex-wife received the money. His children received nothing. Then in 2009, in Kennedy against DuPont, a divorce decree explicitly stripped a man's ex-wife of any claim to his savings plan. He never filed a new form. When he died, his daughter, the executor of his own estate, asked for the money. The court ruled 9-0. The plan pays the form. Not the will, not the court order, not the intention. The paperwork decides. Yvonne did not hire anybody. She did not spend $1. She logged into the retirement portal on a Sunday afternoon with a cup of tea. Finding the beneficiary section took her 11 minutes because it was 3 menus deep and not called anything obvious. Her mother's name was sitting there. 14 years dead. Changing it took 4. Then she did the thing almost nobody does. She kept going. The life insurance through work, different form, different system, also her mother. The old account at her previous employer that she had never rolled over, her mother again. A bank account with a payable on death instruction she had completely forgotten making. 4 documents, 1 afternoon. Then she drove to her aunt's house in Orangeburg with a notebook and started writing down who was still living, who had children, and what anybody could remember about the deed. Not to reclaim the 80 acres. That is gone. To make sure her aunt's house, the last piece of property that family owns, has a name attached to it before it needs one. Yvonne is 51. Her salary has not changed. Her account holds the same $160,000 it held before she logged in. What changed is where it goes. There is a verse people quote at the end of videos like this one. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. I used to hear that as a verse about generosity. It isn't. Read it again. It is a verse about distance. Not children, children's children. 2 generations out. People you will never meet, in rooms you will never stand in. You cannot be generous to someone you will never meet. You can only be organized. Yvonne's great-grandfather was generous. He bought 80 acres for people he would never meet. Nobody told him that generosity, on its own, does not survive a filing cabinet. So here is the whole thing, said once. Who inherits what you built is not decided by what you meant. It is decided by paperwork you will never be in the room to explain. Your will speaks for the things nobody has already claimed. Everything with a form attached, the retirement account, the pension, the life insurance, the bank account with the name written on the back of it, has already been spoken for by a version of you that may not exist anymore. Nobody will ask you to check. There is no letter. There is no renewal. The document does not know your mother died. The hardest part of this was never the paperwork. It's undoing what the absence taught you about yourself. I'm putting that into a free guide which will be available soon. If you are trying to remember what you wrote on a form in your 20s and you cannot, that is not carelessness. That is the design. You were handed a document on your first day, in a room where nobody explained it, at an age when death was an abstraction and the only name you had was the person who raised you. Then the system filed it and never mentioned it again. And if your family lost land, that was not disorganization either. Over half of white Americans have a will. 24% of Black Americans do. That gap was built on purpose by people who understood exactly what a missing document does to a family. You were created for abundance. Nobody gave you the blueprint. It took Yvonne 11 minutes to find hers. So here is the only question that matters tonight. Whose name is on yours? There is one more piece of this, and it is the one that takes the most from families. Not the account, the house. What happens to a home when 4 people inherit it, none of them can agree, and one of them needs the money? One last thing. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is personal financial advice. I'm someone who went looking for the blueprint nobody handed us, and I'm just passing on what I found. What you do with it is between you and God.